Hi, it's Johara. Welcome back to my channel, to the Witchy Reader. So I'm going to be talking about Percy Jackson. So as you know, I just finished it last month, I think. It was at the beginning of last month, so this video is late. But I forgot I wanted to even do this video, so that's part of the reason. The other part is just because of life. so um if you guys watch my reading vlog, my Percy Jackson reading vlog, I'll link it down below if you guys have not seen it. But it's just me going through the Percy Jackson books and reading them and loving my thoughts on them throughout. And I loved it. I loved Percy Jackson. It's a new favorite series of mine. I'd say it's in my top five. I think it's number five in my top five. Um, but I loved it so much. Uh, I finally started Heroes of Olympus yesterday, so I'll do a video on that series once it's done. There'll also be a reading vlog of it, of me going through it. But right now we're talking about the original Percy Jackson series, and oh my gosh, I loved it. It was just so good. I mean, eh, so I thought I would like it. Honestly, it seemed like something I would like. I do like Greek mythology. Maybe you guys haven't seen like this for a while, filming so many videos. um, but I guess I don't know. I didn't think it'd become one of my all-time favorite series, but here we are now. But it was just so good. Um, I loved Percy's character. I loved Annabeth's character, Grover's character, and I love the friendship between the three of them. And I love Percy and Grover's friendship. I wish we got more Annabeth and Grover, honestly, but I love Percy and Annabeth's relationship. I ship it. They're amazing. Um, and I just loved everything. Like, I loved each book. I loved how Percy wasn't afraid to stick it to the gods. Like, I swear he stuck it to the gods at least once a book. Once a book, he was just like not having it. But the whole thing with the gods was kind of messed up. I mean, they didn't even claim all their children. They just are absentee parents. So I love the scene in book 5 when just he tells them, okay, this has to stop. Okay, you guys have to claim your children, and you guys have to be better, do better. It was just an awesome scene. Um, but that final fight was so good. Oh my gosh, and it was so chaotic, and I guess it surprised me. I thought it would be like I don't know, like more like in Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows, where it's like the second half of the book was by. But I guess this makes sense because the Percy Jackson books are a lot smaller. Like unlike Harry Potter, where they were started out small but turned out big, they all were small. Heroes of Olympus are a lot bigger, like the later books, but not the Percy Jackson books. Um, so I was surprised when the fighting started pretty much at the beginning. Like that took me for a loop. I was like, wait, we're just getting into it? Like no time to actually settle in? No, we're just doing it? Okay, let's do it. um but that's but there's so many twists and shocking turns and then sad scenes and just insane moments altogether. Like, oh my gosh. And not just in the last book, but throughout. And I I do notice the similarities between Percy Jackson and Harry Potter. From what I hear, Rick Riordan was actually inspired by Harry Potter to write Percy Jackson. Um, I mean, first of all, Percy and Harry are alike in the sense that, first of all, they're both chosen ones. Second of all, they're these overall nice guys, but they also have a sass to them. Too bad we didn't get to see Harry sass as much in the movies as the books, but he does have a sass. Like there is the whole scene when he tells Snape no need to call him sir. That was an iconic scene. Too bad it wasn't in the movie. I would love to see that on screen. But Annabeth and Hermione are both like these smart, maybe know-it-alls, but I like Annabeth more than Hermione. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. Hermione gets on my nerves. I feel like because maybe because even though Annabeth's a know-it-all too, she I don't know how to explain it. I just like Annabeth more. Hermione gets on my nerves. I do still like Hermione, don't get me wrong, but she gets on my nerves a lot. And there are several times throughout the books that I want to punch her. And I feel like with Annabeth, she doesn't necessarily rub it in her face. She likes to provide her knowledge, sure. And maybe at times she thinks she can do things better than the gods, but I feel like she doesn't necessarily try to rub her knowledge into other people's faces, even if it does come off that way sometimes. Hermione does. Like the scene when um in the first book with Leviosa, not Leviosa, and it's like she was deliberately being a grade A jerk. Like she was just being very awful. Like sh no wonder Ron didn't like her. I wouldn't like her either. I'm sorry, but if I went to Hogwarts, I don't think I like Hermione. And there is also the she's very I don't know. Hermione just gets on my nerves. Okay, that's for another video, a Harry Potter related video where I talk about why Hermione isn't as good as everybody thinks. That's gonna be a video someday. Just you wait. um, and then um, Grover is like Ron. He's more sensitive and more what's the wording? Um, yeah, Ron has his flaws, but he's also very loyal like Grover. And I guess the main relationship in Percy Jackson is Percy and Annabeth. But the main relationship in Harry Potter is Harry and Ron, not Harry and Hermione. Okay, um, but uh, even though there are similarities, I don't see why we have to constantly be like, no, this one's better, no, this one's better. You can have a preference, but I don't even though there are similarities, I don't think they're necessarily comparable. I mean, they're still two different worlds, two different sets of characters, relationships, storylines that can't really be compared. Um, I know I've been seeing things on Twitter lately of like, um, people saying Percy Jackson's better than Harry Potter. Okay, that's your opinion, but doesn't mean you have to necessarily say it's the right thing because it's not. I mean, as much as I love Percy Jackson now, Harry Potter will always be number one in my heart. But I don't think you should necessarily always compare them. And I got off track. So go back to Percy Jackson. Um, but I loved when Thalia came back. That was, I mean, I knew she would because I actually saw the movies long before I finally read the books. The movies are crap. I know this now. But when I first watched them, I didn't think they were that bad because I didn't realize how far they strayed from. But even from a writing standpoint, they weren't that great. Now that I'm a published author, I see it more clearly now. Um, like there are just so many moments that even when you write a movie or even if you write a book, it's important to show, not just tell. And the Percy Jackson movies, they didn't show anything. They just told it in the most boring way possible. Like when Percy uh found out he was the son of Poseidon, he, they, first of all, they no that's one thing they got wrong, one out of a million. But in the book, no one knew he was the son of Percy. They just Poseidon. They knew he was the son of Percy. Wow. Okay. They just knew he was a god. But there it's like they Chiron pointed his pointed to the trident, and Percy's like, oh, I'm the son of Poseidon. Great. Okay. Yeah. But first of all, Chiron couldn't have known. No one could know. All they knew was that he was a demigod, but they didn't know by whom. And then in but in the book there was this whole thing leading up to it. First of all, there was Percy and Annabeth's talk about demigods and who could be his godly parents. And then there's and then after the flag game, capture the flag, is when the trident went above Percy's head, and that's when they knew that he was the son of Poseidon. It was this big, great thing that they built up to, which in the movie it just fell flat. because the movie wasn't good whether you attach it to Percy Jackson or not. But anyways, I got off track once again. But each book was so good. I have no idea why I say which one is my favorite. Honestly, I don't know which one is my favorite. Um, they were all good for different reasons. I mean, the second book I was a little sad because Grover was hardly in it. Although I feel like Grover didn't always play a big part, anyways, except for maybe in the first book. I feel like after that he didn't always play a big part. He did. I don't know. He was in the third. He was in every book, but I don't know. I just feel like they didn't always utilize him as much as they could have. But and in the third book, Annabeth was missing, so she was hardly in it. Um, and Annabeth and Luke's relationship is interesting because first of all, it's one thing for Annabeth to have a crush on Luke. She's so much younger. He's this older, cool guy. But at the end, to have Luke say he had a thing for Annabeth, be like, okay, how old are you now? Because in the first book, wasn't he like 19? And then she was, what, 12? Or maybe he was 17. He still would have been a lot older than her, though. Hmm. But anyways, it's just in 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 the last book, yeah, she was older, but she was still what, 14, 15 maybe? No, she would have been closer to 16, wouldn't she? Yeah, because Percy just turned 16, and she's his age. Or he was about to turn 16. So yeah, she would have been about 15, 16-ish. Um, but still, like, he would have been in his mid-20s at that point. And you told me he has a crush on her, especially since in the first book, he kind of, he make a comment about seeing her as a sister or something, right? Like, I don't know. Um, but even whether he liked her romantically or not, I do believe he cared about her despite everything. Even when he tricked her in book 3 to kind of, hold up this guy. Um, I mean, there were several times throughout when he tried to convince Kronos or whoever not to hurt her. Like, it was very obvious that he cared about her specifically. And I feel like that's part. And I get why. And Annabeth kept holding this hope that there's good in him because she did care about him, even if she had grown to love Percy and maybe not see him in that way anymore. I think, um, but she still did care about him. He raised her. He, um, well, maybe not raised, but like he helped her survive, when she ran away, and he took her in and was there for her when she had nobody. So she did care about him, and I think because of all those reasons it was hard for her to let go and be like, maybe he just can't be saved, and it's very heartbreaking. And I like how the prophecy came to unfold, like how it I just liked how that was done, like what the all the lines meant. And I love to see when we finally get to learn the full prophecy. That was an awesome scene, great way to build it up. And I like that it was Annabeth's knife that Luke gave her that was the cursed blade and not Riptide, which was Percy's sword. Like, that was awesome. Because most of the time it would be in a situation like that, they'd have it be the sword or knife or whatever that uh the chosen one has. But no, it was the knife that Annabeth always uses, and I loved that. Because you don't see something like that where so it was just perfect for me. But and Luke's death, like, I had mixed feelings. I mean, I wouldn't say I like Luke. Don't get me wrong, but he it was still sad because it's like thing. So I love black. I love villains that are not just black and white. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes villains are just pure evil. Don't get me wrong. There's like Voldemort. Okay, he's just pure evil. But I love villains that are so much more than just black and white. because they, for whatever reason, have. What I loved about Luke is that he wasn't wrong. I love villains like that, where, because, okay, so for those of you that have seen Avatar: Last Airbender: Legend of Korra, um, in Avatar, first of all, there was only one main villain. He had a bunch of people working for him, like Azula and the guy from season one. I don't remember his name now. He, but he he was just pure evil. All he wanted was power. And sure, he was a great villain. But what I love about Korra was not only did each season have a different villain, but every villain, they weren't wrong. They were wrong about how they went about getting what they wanted. But what they wanted was reasonable, and they deserved what they wanted. I mean, what one of them, who was it? I think it was here. No, it was Amon, the first villain. He wanted equality. Are you gonna tell me that's wrong? Like seriously, they the only thing that made them villains was the way they went to get what they want, but not what they wanted. What made Ozai a villain was because he wanted power, and that was wrong. But the other people, what they wanted was reasonable, and they weren't wrong for wanting what they wanted. You know, and I feel like that's what with Luke. Kronos, he wanted power. He was wrong, but Luke, he hated the gods because they were awful to them and they were absentee parents, and he wasn't necessarily wrong about what he wanted. He wasn't wrong, and that makes him so much more compelling than some villains, because it's like it's like you can hate him because he's evil and what he's doing is wrong, but you can understand him and sympathize with him because he had a right to hate the gods, and that makes things so much more gray and not just black and white, because we can understand Luke and why he wanted what he wanted, and it just makes it so much more complicated and complex, and it's a more of a three-dimensional character, and I loved it. I feel like he was a great villain because it's like he wasn't wrong. Plus, there's the whole betrayal aspect, which is always nice to have in a villain, and how even though he did kind of go all evil, he did still care. Like I mentioned about him caring about Annabeth, all those traits makes him a great villain, and I loved reading about him. And I loved the whole Percy being jealous of Luke, even though he's evil, he was still jealous of him because of how Annabeth cared about him. That was fun too. I loved it. Honestly, Percy and Harry's jealousy is everything, and I don't even know why I love when they're jealous, but I do. I love when Percy's jealous of Annabeth and Luke, and I loved when Harry was jealous of Dean and Jenny. But maybe it's because both of them even are in like Harry's and Percy's POV, so we get to see it from their perspective, and it's like so it you're in their minds, and it's like so you get to see their jealousy up front, and it's just very interesting. um, but yeah, so but I've been talking a lot and I'm tired of talking, so I'm probably gonna wrap this up in about a minute. Um, but yeah, and there's just so many aspects to Percy Jackson that I ended up loving. Um, the characters, the relationships, the fights, the battles, the villains, the arcs, the storylines. I think I might have said storylines already, but it was just very good, and I did like it a lot. It's a new favorite series, so I'm very happy that I finally read it, and now I want to finish reading the Percy Jackson books. I'm not entirely sure all the books that go in Percy Jackson. I know there's Percy Jackson, obviously. There's Here's Olympus, Trials of Apollo. I think there's one about Nico, and I don't really know what else goes with Percy Jackson. So you guys know, please comment below because I want to read all the Percy Jackson books I can. So I would love to know what all the books go with Percy Jackson. Um, so yeah, but please like and subscribe and comment your thoughts on Percy Jackson. I would love to know, and I'll talk to you guys soon.